Be sure to share, like, subscribe, and comment down below. And always turn on those notifications by clicking on that bell icon. Joe diGenova says Jeff Sessions has a duty to fire Rosenstein. Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz and attorney Joe diGenova weigh in on Hannity.
Joining us now, former U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Joe diGenova, author of Trumped Up, How Criminalization of Political Differences Endangers Democracy. Professor Alan Dershowitz. Professor, good to see you.
Thank you.
You've had a busy 36 hours. Let's go back a little bit to yesterday. And I also really want your take when an FBI director compares a sitting president to a mob boss.
Well, let's start with that. I mean, it really proves the point of my book, Trumped Up. You can find evidence to create or manufacture crimes against anybody if you're determined to do it. That's what's wrong with the special counsel, because they come in with targets painted on people's back. And people like Comey and people like Mueller are going to find crimes, whether they have to go and try to find a technical violation of banking laws on which they can hook pornography stars or things of that kind. And even your account, which was obviously metaphorical in part, proves again, if you're determined to find crimes against anybody, you can do it. That's why we have to restrict and limit the application of the criminal law to clear, unequivocal crimes, and don't use it against political enemies unless the evidence is just overwhelming.
Joe diGenova, let's bring you in.
First of all, it is now clear that no matter what James Comey says about the President of the United States, which are disgraceful comments by a former FBI director, and he has besmirched forever his term as FBI director, what we now know and have known for almost 2 years is James Comey is a dirty cop. He is a completely dirty cop who was compromised from the very beginning of the investigation into Hillary Clinton. And it is also very clear that Rod Rosenstein is so incompetent, compromised, and conflicted that he can no longer serve as the Deputy Attorney General. And Jeff Sessions now has an obligation to the President of the United States to fire Rod Rosenstein after Rosenstein authorized the unconstitutional and unprofessional search of the office of Michael Cohen in New York. Jeff Sessions, tomorrow morning, should fire Rod Rosenstein. It is not up to the president to fire Mr. Rosenstein. It is Mr. Sessions' job, and he has a duty to fire Rod Rosenstein.
Let me, Professor Dershowitz, you have said that the raid on Michael Cohen's hotel room, his home and his office was a violation of his constitutional rights. Do you agree with Joe that it's the Attorney General's job to now step in and fire Rod Rosenstein?
I would do it differently. I think Rod Rosenstein is recused. I don't think he can serve on an investigation in which he will end up being the key witness. And if I were a lawyer for Donald Trump, and I am not, I'm just saying what I would say about anybody, I would be making a motion in front of a judge. First, I'd make it in the Justice Department to recuse Rosenstein. Then I'd make it in front of a judge. You cannot be a prosecutor, and you cannot be a witness in the same case. But the thing to me that's most disturbing tonight, I am a lifelong member of the American Civil Liberties Union. I was on the national board of the American Civil Liberties Union. To its everlasting disgrace, today, the American Civil Liberties Union went out of its way to justify and defend the raid on the lawyer's office, never saying anything about the risks that it does to confidential communications. Because most of your viewers don't know how taint teams work. Joe diGenova does, because he was a great United States attorney.
Explain what a taint team is, because they take all this information,
including the material that is ultimately found to be confidential and lawyer-client. And then somebody in the government reads the material, including the material that's confidential. And then the person says, oh, but this material is confidential, although I've read it. I'm not going to give it to the prosecutor. I'm never going to tell anybody about it. And then suddenly it would, of course, leak. Let me give you an example, just to bring it home. So we know they raided the office to look for the stuff about the Access Hollywood tape. I can easily imagine the conversation between President Trump, then candidate Trump, and his lawyer, Michael Cohen. President Trump says, look, that was an illegal tape of me. I didn't know the microphone was on. California requires 2 parties to consent. Is there anything we can do now to stop that tape from coming out lawfully because it was illegally obtained? Now, then the government gets that conversation.
Does this have anything to do with Russia? Does this have anything to do with?
No.
I mean, seriously. I mean, you're laughing because it's so absurd.
It's so absurd.
All right, Joe, we have so much to get to. We're going to carry you guys over to the next segment. But, Joe, I want you to weigh in on the taint aspect of this. And more importantly, the person that has attorney-client privilege, that would be the president's right to invoke, not Michael Cohen's.
Right.
Look, I must tell you, I find this raid of Mr. Cohen's office so appalling in every sense: legal, ethical, professional responsibility. What Rod Rosenstein and Bob Mueller have done is weaponize in an unconstitutional way the criminal investigation process, which should be sacrosanct. And what they have done is they have conducted and are conducting now something that is called an in terrorem grand jury. They are using a grand jury to terrorize people. That is an abuse of power. Mr. Rosenstein is responsible for it. And while I agree with Alan wholeheartedly that Mr. Rosenstein cannot possibly ethically participate in this, it will make no difference to him, because he now has an animus toward the President of the United States, which disqualifies him from the performance of his duties, and Jeff Sessions should fire him tomorrow morning.
All right, so be sure to share, like, subscribe, and comment down below and tell me how you feel about this report. But other than that, I hope you guys have a great day. Let's make America great again. Peace.